It is Ryan here, and I have a question for you. What do you do when you win? Like, are you a fist pumper, a woohooer, a hand clapper, a high fiver? I kind of like the high five, but if you want to hone in on those winning moves, check out Chumba Casino. At ChumbaCasino.com, choose from hundreds of social casino-style games for your chance to redeem serious cash prizes. There are new game releases weekly, plus free daily bonuses. So don't wait. Start having the most fun ever at ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18 plus.
We made this.
Greetings, fine listeners. Craig here. Before this podcast begins, I just want to make you aware that this was recorded during the 2023 WGA strike and before the SAG-AFTRA strike. We as a podcast team are still committed to discussing and promoting Star Trek Strange New Worlds because the best way to support those striking is to show those withholding fair recompense for their work how important that work is. Without the labour of the actors and writers currently on strike, this show would not exist. And we support their desire to be recognised for the wonderful work they do. Now enjoy this discussion. Craig out. Hello and welcome to We Are Starfleet, one of the We Made This Network's Star Trek podcast. I'm your host Craig and we are continuing our coverage of Strange New Worlds Season 2. We're up to Episode 6, which is called Lost in Translation. Joining me for this discussion is my co-captain, co-host, whatever you want to call him, Ian Buckley. Hello.
Hello. Good to talk to you again, Craig.
Same to you. Yeah, we were previously on episode 2, which actually feels more recent than the release order would have you believe.
Right. We recorded that just last week.
Yeah, but 3 weeks between these episodes. Crazy. What it's like to have advance access.
Yes. Very thankful for that.
Anyway, Lost in Translation is the episode where Uhura hears something strange when they're doing some routine repair work on a dilithium. It's not dilithium, is it deuterium? One of the things they use.
Deuterium, yeah.
Yeah, deuterium mining station. And she thinks she's going insane, but is she? The episode explores that. So what did you think of Lost in Translation, just as a high-level thing?
I liked it. If we're talking about a out of 10 scale, this is a good 8 out of 10 kind of episode. I'd probably have to watch it again before I finalize my thoughts on it. But yeah, I enjoyed it. I've been really enjoying this season. This one was probably one of my favorites. I think you and I have probably talked about my 2 favorite episodes of the season so far now.
Cool. I like this one a lot as well. I would be hovering around 8 out of 10 as well. I thought it was a really good Star Trek plot. It felt reminiscent of other similar episodes we've seen, but we're going to keep getting that with Strange New Worlds, aren't we? We're going to get their take on this kind of episode or their take on that kind of episode. I don't think that's a bug as such. I feel like it's more of a feature.
Yes, I agree. This is, as we've talked about a few times now, a not rehash, because I think that underserves how well they are executing on a lot of levels in this show, but they revisit some of these pretty well-worn Trek tropes that we've seen in series past. And a lot of that, I think, frankly, that fans expect it. There's a certain idea that I think a lot of fans have. Everyone has their own, but in general, an idea of what kinds of stories Star Trek tells. And so there is an element of this show wanting to kind of color within those lines. But I think they are coloring with very vibrant colors. I think they're making very intelligent selection in the colors that they're using to stretch this metaphor to its breaking point. So I do appreciate the work that they're doing, even though, yes, we have seen this kind of, there's a member of our cast who seems to be the only person who is experiencing a thing. Something's going on here, something strange. Let's see how this unfolds. And they do tell a story that I think is pretty unique. We've seen elements of it before, but I think the way they put together the package is really good.
Yeah, and they have a different mission statement anyway in terms of what this episode is trying to achieve, which we'll get to. But broadly, it's an Uhura episode. It focuses on her, and she was one of the lucky ones in season 1 that got her own episode more than once, really. Episode 9 wasn't really an Uhura episode, but she had a lot to do in that episode. episode 2 was very much the Uhura episode.
Yes.
So she got sort of 1.5 episodes, really, last season. And this season, this is her turn. They seem to be doing the kind of revolving door character focus. This week is this person type structure of the season.
Yeah, which, hey, Uhura is a character who is much beloved, but also, as we've discussed in the past, in the original series, was pretty underserved. She didn't have a lot to do in the series itself. She often didn't have a lot to do in the TOS movies. As beloved as Nichelle Nichols is, and as groundbreaking as that character was, it is totally understandable that Strange New Worlds wants to take the opportunity to really actually dig into this character for the first time.
Yeah, one thing I said it might have been a review or on a podcast or both last season about the second episode of season 1 is it developed Uhura more than the entirety of the original series and probably the movies did in one episode, because they actually dug into her past and gave her a backstory.
Absolutely.
And characterized her in some way, because the original series didn't do that. And it didn't do that with most of its characters because it was focused on the 3, and then Scotty would get a look in once in a while.
Right. That was the core of the show, and this show is different. So we're getting the opportunity. A series like TOS, even though we got 3 seasons, 20 plus episodes in each season, but like you said, there wasn't one of them that focused any true attention on Uhura as a character. Yes, we've only had 15, 16, 17 episodes of Strange New Worlds, but we've already gotten a couple of substantial explorations of this character.
With weird stuff in the original series, like her getting her memory erased and they had to reteach her everything. Remember when that happened? That was odd.
Right.
And they just glossed over it and never got mentioned again.
Yeah, no, sure. You have plenty of those episodes in TOS where something wacky or strange happens to some or all of the crew, and we get these little notes with some of our ancillary characters, but we don't ever get any exploration of their inner lives.
I think there was a throwaway line at the end of that episode where, how's Uhura doing? She's up to high school level or college level or something like that.
Right. She's getting there.
Doesn't matter that she doesn't remember anything about who she is or where she came from or her family or her friends.
Nope.
No, we've just done a crash course in education. That's all we need to do. That's all she is.
I'm sure she's got records in the computer.
Yeah, because reading over your own diaries is as easy as remembering things, isn't it? It's the same thing.
That's exactly the same thing.
Crazy. But anyway, let's do a bit of a deep dive into this episode. So like I said, they are doing some repair work of a deuterium mining facility that's in the middle of a nebula somewhere. Pike has got a temporary promotion to fleet captain, which is prophetic in a way, as in he's referred to as fleet captain when he's in the chair. So whether this promotion is permanent or not, we don't know. But he has a shiny new badge to accommodate his promotion. Presumably that's what fleet captains wear as badges. It's a bit strange. He's just got a new badge for some reason.
Yeah, he does. I can't remember if that's a specific costuming callback to TOS, but yes, so. He does have a specific little fleet captain badge.
Yeah, and he keeps insisting it's temporary when everybody congratulates him, which is a nice little running joke.
Yeah, he's funny, and I think Mount plays this shade of his character very well. He is someone who is shown a few times to be uncomfortable. He's comfortable as a captain, but any more praise that gets heaped on him, he gets this very aw shucks attitude about it. He gets this level of discomfort about it. It's funny because obviously he was ambitious enough to become a Starfleet captain and exudes confidence. So it's always funny to see these little moments where he's uncomfortable with praise or with responsibility.
Yeah, it's a nice little character quirk, as in he doesn't want to be seen in that way. He doesn't want to have praise heaped on him. He'd rather just let his actions speak for themselves, which is a good quality for a captain, because you could see him going too far the other way and being this arrogant, yeah, I'm the best. Look at how much my crew loves me sort of attitude.
Yeah, and it's the lack of obvious ambition in him, even though presumably he has some to reach this rank and to be captaining this particular ship, but his baseline level of humility is something that I think makes him such a winning character personality-wise.
Yeah, and it seems that my prediction about Pike being more of a background player in this season is true. In the first 6 episodes, it's only really episode 4 where he plays a prominent role, and he's not got his memory for most of that, so It's not really a character study as such. Kind of is and kind of isn't. But he's been in the background of every other episode.
Yeah, this episode has more Kirk in it than Pike.
Yeah. I did read that he was only in one scene of episode 1 because Anson Mount recently had a kid, so asked for a bit of time off for that. So maybe that's feeding into screen time over the course of the season as well, or how much he's got to do.
Yeah, scheduling concerns can definitely make a difference. I know we speculated a bit about Rebecca Romijn's availability. Maybe that is something that is a bit of a concern for someone like Anson Mount too, who's also a star of this show and may have other demands on his time and his schedule.
Yeah, a new kid around, I imagine, that's taking up a lot of his time.
Yeah, could be personal or professional.
Yeah. And the Rebecca Romijn thing, the more I think about it, the more I think they're trying to maneuver around her schedule, because in this episode she spends most of it on the facility with Carol King mainly. So it seems like they could build a schedule around just making sure she was available to do this side of it more than anything else. It doesn't really show that she can't be around as much, but when you think of it in that terms, you sort of notice, oh yeah, she's pushed to the side and doing different things a lot of the time. Well, it makes sense for her character as well.
Yeah. I'm sure there's a lot that goes into planning out the schedule.
Anyway, back to the actual meat and potatoes of the episode. Uhura hears a mysterious sound in her ear, and then she starts being driven mad by hallucinations of pretty dark stuff. She thinks she might be going insane. She's being faced with hallucinations of a kind of zombie hammer in the turbo lift, stuff like that. What did you think of all that, with her hearing the noise and then her almost descent into madness, or perceived descent into madness?
I quite enjoyed it. It was reminiscent, like we alluded to earlier, of, it's probably been done a few times, but the episode that I always think of when it's a situation like this is, it happens a lot, that episode of Next Gen where Beverly is the only one who seems to notice that there are members of the crew disappearing who, according to the computer and to everyone else who's around, never existed until it's just her and like one other person, and then eventually she's alone. That idea of there's one person who's experiencing a phenomenon, they're the only person who's experiencing this thing, it's very strange, and they've got to figure it out. And they are in the position of having to go to their fellow crew members and saying, I'm experiencing this thing. I'm the only person who's experiencing it. And what I love is how quickly in each of those situations, their colleagues listen to them, believe them, take them seriously, and act on it. It's one of the things that I really appreciated about this episode, and about the specific audio cues and the visions. I thought there were some really effective moments of horror and tension that were created by that. A couple of jump scares that I wasn't really expecting. Strange New Worlds is not afraid to play around with a variety of genres, and I appreciate that.
The episode that made me think of was another Next Gen one, the one where nobody could sleep, and Troy was the only one who could sleep. It turned out these aliens were communicating with her about what they needed in order to escape whatever thing they were stuck in. It reminded me of that because of the communication angle.
Yeah, I think that's probably a better analogy. I hadn't remembered that episode, but yeah, you're right. I do now.
It's not a very good one.
No, that's probably why I don't watch it as much as the other one.
I'd be surprised if the production team on this were explicitly referencing that one as well.
Who knows? There is the running theme of the lack of sleep and what that can cause.
Yeah, but for Uhura, it's more of a episode about processing her grief and understanding that encountering death is just something that's going to come with the territory of being a Starfleet officer. There's mention of the fact that she hasn't stopped since Hemmer's death. She's been burning the candle at both ends. She's really strung out. She's also been working on this mining station project with very little sleep over the past few days as well. So she's really not coping very well. It's one of those annoying things where they could be using serialization better. We could have been getting hints of this over the course of the season.
I agree.
But this is the first we've heard of it. Every other episode, she seemed fine.
Yeah. The hallucinations specifically in this episode are justified by what happens with the aliens that live in the nebula. But her overall intense focus, you maybe get, if you look back on it, earlier points in the season, she's a lot more assertive in certain situations than she was in season 1, and I read that as just character growth.
Same, yeah.
Maybe it was an indication of this is a character who's just a little bit more on edge, who has a bit of a shorter fuse than she did in the past. Maybe that's what they were going with, but you're right, they definitely didn't underline this issue at any point prior.
But they do a good job of it here.
Yes.
The idea that she has been essentially running ever since the point of her parents' death. She's never really dealt with it in a healthy way. And then the loss of Hemmer has reopened that wound and made it more apparent that she doesn't deal with these things very well. I like how one of the trigger points is her watching that video that Hemmer made to show her how to do something that she's following in order to do it herself rather than burden engineering with a task of some sort. She just goes and does it herself.
Yeah, I like that Hemmer basically made her a series of YouTube tutorials and she's now got those as a link back to him. I hope it's not the last time we see that. I don't need it to necessarily be a device we see all the time to solve problems, but I'd love to see her continue to have Hemmer live on in that way with her.
I'm hoping that's not all they meant when they said that Bruce Horak would be back in the second season, because we're over halfway through and he's not been back yet.
I hope not as well. I'm expecting another appearance as some other alien down the line.
They did say he would be playing a different character, although it's possible that plan changed in the meantime.
I wouldn't be surprised if we see him. We've got a lot more, well, not a lot more season left, but we have plenty of episodes left, and I'm sure we'll see him pop up again.
Yeah, but it was a nice touch having him in the tutorial video, and I don't know if the cameo at the end, the hallucination cameo, was actually something that they filmed or whether they just plucked him out of some older footage and put him in there. Who knows?
Yeah.
It was an interesting way for Uhura to process that, the fact that Hemmer was on her mind, the aliens were able to use that as part of her visions, and she was able to be reminded of all that and deal with all that, or resist dealing with it for the longest time, actually. She spent so much of the episode trying to find a logical explanation for everything, when the fact is she needed to slow down and think about it. And that links into the whole grief angle. No, you have to slow down and you actually have to let yourself deal with it. You can't ignore it.
Right. Yeah. Just diving headfirst into work the way she has been isn't actually processing anything. It's just postponing the inevitable. And oftentimes when you suppress and repress the expression of those feelings for long enough, it has a deleterious effect on your physical and mental health.
Yeah, for sure. And she spends most of the episode teaming up with none other than James T. Kirk, who's got a promotion to First Officer of the Farragut, which he'll be stepping into in a few months once he trains his replacement. We don't know what he actually does at the moment on the Farragut, but he needs to train his replacement, and it'll take months, so it must be something pretty important. What did you think of having Kirk in this episode and in the role that they put him in as well?
I liked it. I like Paul Wesley in this role. It is not a William Shatner impression. It's not a Chris Pine impression. He's making it his own. It's Kirk at a different stage in his life. We laughed a little bit about it, I think, off mic the last time we talked about Star Trek. The fact that Paul Wesley is 40 years old and is playing Kirk when he should be in his mid-20s at this point in his career. It's a little bit of a strange casting decision. I think one of the things that it gives this performance is a sense of experience, maybe wisdom beyond the point in his career that he's supposed to be. We see that Kirk is maybe a more mature character than we're expecting to see at this point in his career, which I like. There could have easily been the temptation to lean into the really arrogant, cocksure, flyboy type of swaggering confidence Kirk in his mid-20s, many people probably would have expected. And that character could have been pretty annoying and could have been pretty grating to watch. And instead, I think they've found a balance between charm and humor and also serious-mindedness that one would expect in a Starfleet officer who is reaching these career milestones at earlier points than other people have.
The perception of Kirk by people that watch the show always confuses me, because people see him as this arrogant, reckless, rule-breaking person that does whatever he wants and gets away with it, sort of thing. But that isn't the character. That never was the character in the original series.
No, he's a very thoughtful guy. He frequently talks himself out of situations. He is a match for Spock in 3D chess. He talks down at least one supercomputer. It is a fallacy. I think people who are less familiar with the original series have this idea of Kirk as being more of a swashbuckler. But I do think that is also because sometimes the way other characters who aren't Kirk are written, the way they speak about him. I think about Carol Marcus and her son talking about the way Kirk was when he was younger. I think that leaves an impression on audiences that is not necessarily in line with the actual actions we see of him in the original series, where he's a much more well-rounded character. What I think I mean by my comment is that I'm glad that they are leaning into, I think, the reality of the Kirk and TOS being this actually pretty impressive, thoughtful person, rather than being the young swashbuckler who I was worried they might try to make him. And I'm glad that they haven't.
I remember a dialogue, I think it was in Where No Man Has Gone Before, where he referenced being very grim at the academy, pile of books, that kind of thing. He was very studious. There was a recklessness in the original series, but he would take calculated risks, as in he knew what the ship could handle.
Right.
He was willing to bluff because he believed that he was in the stronger position, that kind of stuff. He's not just any risk that he can take, he'll take it. It's not like the characterization of Chris Pine in those earlier films. As in, outside of Beyond, Chris Pine is very much that. And I found the characterization of Kirk in those first two films, particularly the second one, to be very obnoxious for that reason, because he's just an idiot.
Yeah, I guess that's sort of what I had in mind.
Yeah, but this one, he's hyper competent. And he knows he is, to be fair. It's that earned confidence, I suppose. But there's just something there that suggests that, yeah, this guy knows his job and he respects it.
Right. There's the confidence of competence that he has. It's not this unearned arrogance that would be grating and annoying. He has a very, I think, believable and relatable rivalry with his brother Sam. I understand why Sam is irritated by him, as unreasonable as I think Sam is being in this particular episode. I also get from their performance and their interaction that there are decades underlying the kind of interaction that they're having. And so I thought that that portrayal of their relationship was believable and effective. I appreciated those notes. I understood both of their perspectives, even if Sam was being a bit of a dick.
It was a believable setup. And
yes,
the idea that George Kirk Sr. is a very difficult man to please, and they both feel like they're fighting for his approval. But it seems that Jim Kirk is getting it more naturally than Sam is, because he's following in the same footsteps, whereas Sam went under a different path, even though he's the one that was maybe expected to be the inheritor because he got his dad's name. I don't know if we'll ever see George Kirk later on, but it's an interesting idea that he's this kind of hard ass that makes his sons compete for his approval. Maybe he's not actually doing that. Maybe it's just a perception thing, but either way, they feel like they need to measure up.
Yeah, I don't know whether he chose consciously to go follow a different path because it was a different path, or whether he chose to follow his own genuine passions. I hope it's the latter, just because it's a healthier thing. But there is this sense of he chose this life of science, and we know that that can eventually lead to a captaincy. Like Janeway came from a science background, but it's clear that Sam is forging his own path, and there's this sense of his brother kind of sprinting ahead.
Yeah. Well, there's mention of him being the youngest first officer in the fleet and things like that, which will eventually dovetail into the youngest captain in the fleet.
Absolutely. Not to keep going back to the age thing, because it's not his fault. It's just funny that they chose to make this particular point at this spot in Kirk's career where he's the youngest XYZ to meet these various milestones. It's just funny casting a 39-year-old actor. I don't know how old Sisko was. Admittedly, he was a commander, but when he took over, Captain Picard was in his early 50s, late 40s. We're not talking about decades difference here. Frakes must have been around, what, late 30s, early 40s when TNG started. It's just strange to me, I think.
Riker was following that Kirk path, wasn't he? He was the young prodigy that was rocketing through his career faster than most other people, and then he hits a brick wall on the Enterprise D.
An Enterprise-sized wall.
He hits a network television wall where he can't go any further because that would change the show too much.
Yeah.
They even had the episode where they were thinking about killing him off or whatever to replace him with his transporter duplicate, but that could have been the episode where they promoted him, sent him off to another ship, and then kept his lower ranking transporter duplicate.
Frakes turned 40 in 1992, so He was younger than Paul Wesley when he was the first officer of the Enterprise. It's just a funny little quirk of casting. It does lead into my own pet theory. I agree with you. They are rebooting the TOS era, but I wouldn't be surprised if instead of doing another pure reboot of the 5-year mission of TOS, if we don't jump ahead a little bit and get the phase 2 we never got, which Paul Wesley would be a more appropriate age for if we went into that era. But anyway, I'm growing on his performance. I think that the dynamic that's growing between him and La'an is interesting. I think they have chemistry. I thought they had chemistry in their prior episode, even though it wasn't exactly the same character. And I'm curious to see where it goes. I was a bit of a skeptic, but I'm coming around to this character. What I do feel is with the shorter season lengths of these series, the focus on Kirk being the one to come in and help solve this problem, it's interesting, it's kind of nice, but it does make me feel like, why didn't we get a regular member of this series cast to come in and fix this problem? We're still learning so much about all of these characters that we see every week. Couldn't we have taken this opportunity to learn a little bit more about a character that we're going to see regularly?
Yeah, it's a bit strange. Kirk is characterized as a recurring presence on this show for this season.
Yeah, we know we're going to see him at least one more time.
With 2 appearances, that qualifies. One is an alternate reality, but still, it's Paul Wesley playing James T. Kirk. So 2 episodes out of currently 6. That's definitely recurring. That's a third of the episodes available so far. That makes sense. But yeah, it's a bit strange they didn't decide to pair Uhura up with someone else on the crew of her ship. Again, it feeds into my theory of they're really front-loading the notion of Kirk and they want to head in that direction at some point. And they're maybe playing with the audience a little bit just to see how they react to this version of him, because obviously he's a legacy iconic character and it wouldn't be natural to assume that everybody will warm to.
Hey guys, it is Ryan. I'm not sure if you know this about me, but I'm a bit of a fun fanatic when I can. I like to work, but I like fun too. It's a thing. And now the truth is out there. I can tell you about my favorite place to have fun. Chumba Casino. They have hundreds of social casino style games to choose from with new games released each week. You can play for free anytime, anywhere. And each day brings a new chance to collect daily bonuses. So join me in the fun. Sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
Step into the world of power, loyalty, and luck.
I'm gonna make him an offer he can't refuse.
With family, cannolis, and spins mean everything.
Now, you wanna get mixed up in the family business.
Introducing The Godfather at ChumbaCasino.com. Test your luck in the shadowy world of The Godfather slot.
Someday, I will call upon you to do a service for me.
Play The Godfather now at ChumbaCasino.com.
Welcome to the family.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 18+. Terms and conditions apply.
A new portrayal of him. They probably did that with Spock as a litmus test in Discovery when he was in there, for example.
Yeah, and Pike too, to an extent. I mean, that was, I think, the strength of the response to Pike's appearance in season 2 of Discovery. It's that lightning in a bottle thing that I think they're hoping to catch again. I won't say that Paul Wesley is jumping off the screen to me the same way that, frankly, Anson Mount did as Pike when he came onto that show. I felt like when he came onto that show, it was an announcement, I'm here. Especially easy to say, though, in retrospect, given that it helped launch this series. But that's what I'm saying. That appearance helped launch this series. It willed this series that we all really enjoy into existence. It wouldn't exist if he hadn't jumped off the screen at us. So I don't think Paul Wesley is falling into that camp performance-wise and screen presence-wise. But what he is giving me is a winning performance at this point. I am being won over by him, which I think is all you can really ask of him in this role. It is a tough set of shoes to fill, boots to fill.
Yeah, there's a few things about him that make me think of Shatner in some ways. The way he conducts himself, he has that kind of swagger that Shatner had. But I do feel like he's putting his own stamp on it.
Yes.
But it's possibly more difficult a job than Chris Pine had, because Chris Pine was playing a different Kirk, so he could go in directions that Shatner didn't and get away with it because it's not the same guy.
Yeah, good point.
Whereas this is the same guy, so we do have to see him at an earlier point from where we met him. But there's little shades of who he is, his unconventional thinking. That's a big part of this episode. He's the one who immediately believes Uhura, whereas other people think she just needs a nap. She just needs to slow down a bit.
You're right. Although, to be fair, a lot of the symptoms that she's experiencing can be explained by the very things that she has been exposing herself to, namely exhaustion and deuterium gas.
And then Kirk gets punched in the face, which does help him along the path of believing her as well.
Yeah, that's the thing. He witnesses her really have a strong delusional episode. No one else has actually seen that yet.
And he says he's experienced similar things in his own career as well.
Yeah, I very much like the Kirk believes her. And we've talked a bit about the canon police and whether people will have problems about this changing the way that he and Pike met, the way that he and Uhura met, the way that he and Spock, yada, yada, yada. I don't care. Frankly, I don't. While I think the decision to make Kirk such a core element of some of these episodes, when I feel like they could be spending a little bit more time giving us more to do with the main series cast, I think that he's doing a good job with what they're giving him. I think that the chemistry that he's developing with the other legacy characters is effective. I think that that moment where he does meet Spock at the end, not to jump ahead to the very end, is understated. It's not this big over-the-top moment. I thought it was handled pretty well. It wasn't handled as this sort of momentous, because these characters wouldn't have any idea that their future holds in store what it does. It would have been a much more casual, matter-of-fact meeting, and that's what we got. And yet, for the audience, we understood the import.
Well, canonically, we don't know anything about how these characters meet because they never talk about it. They never reference any of these things. So we've never seen how Kirk met Uhura. It was just, we could assume that she came aboard the Enterprise and joined his crew, and that maybe was how they met. Kirk and Spock, there's a friendship there that was clear in the original series, so they must have some kind of history, but they never explored what that was. Fine. That gives Strange New Worlds a blank canvas to show these things and do it in their own way. And I thought the Uhura meeting was something I didn't quite expect, although it felt a bit similar in a way to the 2009 movie, as in he speaks to her and she says, "I'm not in the mood to be hit on right now," which is kind of what happened in the 2009 movie, although he did make a pass at her quite obviously in that movie, whereas here he was just making conversation, or so he says. Maybe for Kirk that's flirting. He's a bit like Captain Jack in Doctor Who. Every time he opens his mouth, he's flirting with a woman when he speaks to them. But it's an interesting thing because you watch that scene, you're like, haha, he's going to be your boss pretty soon, in a couple of years.
Right. It is that funny thing of a lot of times people just assume that when someone is being friendly, there's something else going on. I get it. It's a thing, but really enjoyed their dynamic. I thought they had this good, believable comrades, colleagues, peers, and then eventually maybe friends. I thought that the energy that they had together was really effective. And with having said all my reservations about having Kirk take such a large role in this show, I think that what they're doing with him when they're doing it has been largely effective for me.
I really liked his speech to her about facing death, as in we have to face death every day because of our jobs. And he encourages her to acknowledge that and not let it poison the memories of the people that she lost, the fact that she is going to keep losing people. Although it was a bit strange that coming from Kirk, because a big part of Wrath of Khan is you've never faced death. You've never actually done this.
Yes. It's interesting because the movies kind of exist in a world of their own. We kind of know that they were, especially the Nicholas Meyer ones, written from the perspective of someone who does not have a deep sense of Star Trek lore. So fine, fair enough. It works for thematic exploration in a one-off movie when you establish that that is Kirk's character. But yeah, it does make you wonder here, what are the situations that this Kirk has faced where he's lost people? Maybe it's that he has not had to face the potential loss of his ship, his crew, his family, that Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan is more focused on. Whereas here he's talking about in the abstract, but sometimes it gets specific. You could lose your life being in Starfleet. You could lose a colleague, a friend in Starfleet, but he hasn't necessarily been faced, certainly at this point in his career, the possibility of losing everything.
Yeah, I wonder if he's encountered that cloud that he encountered when he was on the Farragut yet. I wonder if that's happened. I'm not quite sure on the timeline, but that was a big, devastating loss for him.
Right.
And then there's all Kodos the Executioner stuff from his
Yeah.
childhood. So there's all that. He has faced death quite commonly.
He certainly has encountered it before.
But on a broader level, it's a superior officer giving advice to a junior officer with
Right.
the benefit of experience, and it works really well. And it's good advice as well. It's the idea of you're giving death power by failing to acknowledge it, and you can't do that if you want to do this job.
Right.
Which was great and really worked. And then it allowed Uhura to finally acknowledge these things. So she acknowledges the loss of her parents. She goes inside the shuttle in her vision and faces up to the fact that, yes, this happened. And the same with Hemmer as well. And when she acknowledges it, it allows her to see the situation more clearly and decode the communication that's being sent to her. I love the way she interprets the imagery in order to figure out what they're trying to say to her.
Yeah. And I thought the way they went about solving the problem once they understood or were starting to understand what the problem was effective. I thought that this was classic Star Trek procedural. Okay, it might be this problem. Okay, it's not that problem. Maybe it's this. Okay, it's not that. You're experiencing something different. Okay, maybe it's this. And then they figure it out and then they work the solution. And it involves an alien species that's being threatened unknowingly by the actions of the Enterprise and the Federation. And once they realize that, they stop doing what they're doing. They go so far as to destroy the deuterium refinery and allow these aliens to continue to exist and live their lives in peace. And all of that felt very Star Trek-y, very effective, whatever my feelings about the utilization of Kirk in the story are.
It's kind of a chopping down the rainforest allegory, isn't it? By doing this for our own ends, we are destroying lives. We are destroying beautiful sentient beings.
Yeah, we're strip mining this mountain for the resources within, and there happens to be a sentient species living there. It's all of that environmental consciousness, being aware of the impact that our actions are having on the world around us, of the unintended consequences of our actions, and of taking responsibility once we become aware. That's the thing, is not just saying, well, that's too bad. What are you going to do? They recognize the impact of the problem on this species, and they say, oh, well, we obviously can't continuing to do this thing that's obviously wrong.
I liked Pike's approach to it as well when he found out what was actually going on. He listened to Uhura, he let her do what she needed to do, and he made it clear that there will be consequences for this, but don't worry, it's on me. I will face them. And that's true leadership, isn't it? He's the captain.
Absolutely.
He's responsible for everybody under his command. So when Starfleet come and say, why did you blow up this thing that was going to give us a strategic advantage over the Gorn in this area of space? And he's going to answer those questions. He's going to deal with that.
Right.
So a good leader is Pike. And Kirk is standing there watching, learning how to be a good captain at the same time. He's seeing what he's going to have to do later on.
Yeah, good point. Definitely.
Definite canon breach committed in this episode with Kirk and Pike explicitly meeting.
Yep.
That doesn't stack up with what was said in that one original series episode where Kirk talked about the only time they ever met.
Yeah. And look, I disagree, frankly, with folks who say that the people who are making the show don't know or don't care about canon. I think that you can disagree with some of the departures they're choosing to make, but they are making conscious decisions about these things. They're clearly picking and choosing, and you can criticize that, but it is a choice that they are making, picking and choosing which bits of canon they're going to continue to reinforce and uphold, move towards, and which are getting left by the wayside. And as a fan, you can disagree with the specific decisions that they're making, the specific departures that they're making. But what I get increasingly frustrated by is the accusation that they don't know what they're doing, that they're doing it thoughtlessly, that they're doing it carelessly, just because you don't agree with the specific departures they're making.
Yeah, I don't agree with them kneecapping themselves in order to stick to canon. It doesn't really matter. Do we need to keep Paul Wesley from interacting with Anson Mount because of this one line in the original series? I don't think so. I'd rather see them interact. I'd rather see Kirk and Pike talking to one another in this show.
Right. I'd rather see what new and interesting storytelling possibilities can emerge when we deviate from canon. And I suppose the counter argument is just tell new stories that don't involve any canonical stuff and this fan servicey stuff, because we're much more interested in seeing new stories. You want to bring back some of these characters you recognize, fine, but tell new stories rather than having them intersect in ways that demand revisions to canon, I guess would be a counter argument. But generally speaking, I don't care. I like the references to canon that they do make and the departures that they make. So far, generally speaking, I've been on board with. Yeah, I'm not going to agree with every single decision that they make, but I can still recognize that it's a conscious decision being made by professional writers and not just some sort of toddler smashing a bunch of stuff off a table thoughtlessly. It's not thoughtless. It's just maybe something certain fans don't agree with.
Yeah, I think they're concentrating on picking and choosing where they want to stretch things a bit in order to give you the best content in a given episode. Remember Discovery sort of kneecapped themselves in season 2 when Sarek and Amanda showed up to say goodbye to Burnham and didn't bother speaking to Spock because the canon was that Spock and his father haven't spoken in years. By the time that, whatever that original series episode that Sarek's in, the name escapes me at the moment, but they prevented those two actors from interacting just because they wanted to stick to that. And I think that was a mistake.
Yeah, I agree. I think this slavish devotion to, especially like you said, one line, one sentence gets mentioned in one episode 60 years ago, and we're supposed to be beholden to that forever to the detriment of storytelling possibilities. Are you serious? No.
And you'll get people online that complain about it despite the fact that they probably didn't remember that line existed until someone pointed it out to them. That happens a lot.
Yes, that happens a lot. If it weren't for the canon police to come in and let you know that such and such was technically a violation, most people would never know or care.
Pretty much. So, good job here. We got to see Pike and Kirk sharing a couple of scenes together, and they were decent enough.
Absolutely. Good moments between them. I thought all of Paul Wesley's as Kirk's interactions with the various crew all went really well. He was in a bit of subordinate learning mode when he was with Pike. The roles were kind of reversed when he was with Uhura, and we had him in a variety of different situations, and his interactions with Lon. I think they continue to have good chemistry. I liked their moments together. So yeah, I like the different shades that we're getting of Kirk, and I just wish this was a 20 episode old school Star Trek season so that I wouldn't have this nagging feeling of why aren't we spending this time with our main cast.
I liked the Kirk-La'an dynamic in this episode as well. They didn't overplay it. I was surprised that most of his screen time wasn't going to be with her because they'd set up that potential connection when she called him at the end of episode 3.
Lucky Land Casino, asking people, what's the weirdest place you've gotten lucky?
Lucky? In line at the deli, I guess?
Aha, in my dentist's office. More than once, actually.
Do I have to say?
Yes, you do.
In the car before my kids' PTA meeting.
Really?
Yes.
Excuse me, what's the weirdest place you've gotten lucky?
I never win and tell.
Well, there you have it. You can get lucky anywhere, playing at LuckyLandSlots.com. Play for free right now. Are you feeling lucky? No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
But they do have that really meaningful conversation about Kirk feeling like he was secondary to his dad's career when he was younger. The idea that he was chasing his dad from post to post, and he could never understand why strangers merited his time more than his children did. And his mother would always say he's helping people who need it, who really need it, was the actual line. And La'an is sort of the example that Kirk's dad was in a way right, because helping strangers is important, because if someone hadn't stepped away from their family to rescue her, then she wouldn't be there. And that's her point of view on it.
I really loved that moment between them as well. I thought that was a good scene. And I think these moments that Wesley's being given as Kirk in this episode in particular is going a long way towards really selling me on this iteration of Kirk. It's intentional for sure, but I think that the way that they're doing it is being executed at a pretty high level.
I do wish they would lighten his hair, though. That might be easier to make the connection.
I think visually I'm missing a little bit of blonde in there, yeah.
Just not too much, just lighten it a little bit.
Just a little bit. It's a little dark. He's got pretty dark features. The hair's a little dark. Yeah, they should lighten it up a little bit.
Not as blonde as Chris Pine's Kirk, but somewhere in between.
No, somewhere in between Shatner and Pine.
Maybe they will later on. Maybe the blonde is a choice that he makes as he gets older, as he starts to grey prematurely or something, so he just dyes his hair blonde to cover it up.
There you go.
Well, we all know about Shatner's toupee back in the day.
Right.
His very vanity-driven approach to his own hair loss.
His toupee and his girdle.
Yeah, those two things. I don't know if that'll be a problem for Paul Wesley. He's from the CW. He knows about keeping it tight.
He's a pretty svelte guy. Yeah, he knows how to keep it tight.
We had a brief acknowledgement of the Spock and Chapel relationship, which started in the previous episode, and Spock wants to tell Starfleet about it because them's the rules. If you're in a relationship with someone on your ship, you have to tell them for some reason. I think that's just a military thing as well, but that's what he wants to do. But she's used to the more casual approach to relationships, so she doesn't want to. What did you think of that? And what do you think of this more strong canon breach that is their actual consummated relationship?
This is a bigger deviation from canon, but it's such a big deviation that, again, it's obviously a choice that the creators have made in order for them to be able to tell these kinds of stories that they want to tell. And largely, I'm okay with it. I have my own headcanon about why things are a little bit different, which I'm sure I've explained to you, which is not anything groundbreaking or revolutionary. It's just basically that we have seen them do so many weird timeline fuck-ups over the span of all of the years of Star Trek that we've seen, that some stuff is just going to happen a little bit differently now. It's just the way it is. I don't have or need any other explanation. I'm good. That's it. I continue to really like everything that Jess Bush does. Wish she had a little bit more. She does work on the medical angle of things, but for me, would have liked to see a little bit more of her in this episode. Wouldn't have minded a little bit of her and Spock's dynamic in this episode, or for that. I was prepared a little bit for that conversation earlier in the episode to set up something that would come on down the line in this episode. It's clearly setting up a longer term arc for the two of them, which is fine, but I don't have any particular issue with it. I like the two of them together. If anything, I wish that I saw a little bit more of it this week.
I don't have a problem with the canon deviation because it would be really boring if they were just repeating the beat of she flirts with him, he doesn't notice for however long the show goes on, because they want to stick to that dynamic still existing in the original series. When they do their reboot of the original series or reboot phase 2 or whatever, it won't matter because that'll overwrite that to some degree anyway. And I'm convinced they're going to do it. Although with all the cancellations we're hearing about, who knows? Who knows if this show will even continue on beyond this season at this point, because apparently something being almost finished doesn't mean that you'll actually ever see it anymore. That's the world we live in, entertainment-wise, unfortunately. But I don't have an issue with that. The issue I have with it is it's just a bit too CW for me. And I know I watch a lot of CW shows. I'm known for that. Maybe I'm not known for that, but I do watch a lot of CW shows. But the things I hate about them are they love triangle-y crap because it's also repetitive. And we basically have a love triangle here with Spock, T'Pring, and Chapel. It's just T'Pring isn't there most of the time. But the previous episode we had you weren't honest with me. I feel like we should take a break for a bit. So I'm just counting the minutes until she turns up, wanting to give things a try, and finds out he's with Chapel, and they argue about it, and it creates this whole drama around it. I just really can't be bothered with that because I know it's coming, and I know pretty much how it's going to play out. I feel like I don't want to see it. But acknowledging that Chapel is more used to a casual approach to relationships, whereas Spock is more traditional in that sense, is an interesting dynamic. Her analogy about the Schrodinger's cat, but using it wrong, was quite a funny, quirky bit of dialogue. So I understand what this means, but just go with me on this.
Yeah, they both understand that it is not a literal useful metaphor, but it is, in the context of the conversation, a useful metaphor for her to use. I thought that was good. Again, I think that their dynamic, their chemistry is great. So that is why I like seeing more of it. I hear what you're saying in that there is this sense of inevitable doom with their relationship. And so on some level, it does make it a little difficult to invest. But also, it's such a big deviation from canon already that I'm not as confident. I'm 80% sure I know where it's going, but that 20% uncertainty is enough to keep me invested.
I'm not certain on how this will end up playing out, but I know what the next few beats are going to be. And there will be T'Pring showing up later this season or maybe in next season to tell Spock that she made a mistake by suggesting they go on a break or whatever. Or turning up thinking that, okay, we've had enough of a break now, it's time to revisit this whole thing. Because it's Vulcan logic. Logic dictates that 6 months is a reasonable break, so I'm back. And I think we should give this another go. Oh, wait, you're with her. The one that I kind of suspected that you were into anyway. Oh, that's complicated. Let's argue about this for a bit. and let's have love triangle-y based hijinks for an episode. I feel like we're heading that way, and I don't want to see it because I've seen it so many times, and it's usually tedious.
I don't have as much of a problem with love triangles or shenanigans, never mind both together, as you do. So that's fair enough. We each have different tastes on that front and levels of tolerance. But I hear what you're saying. I don't like feeling like I know how things are going to play out, what directions they're going to take narratively. But I feel enough confidence in the show so far that I'm hoping to be surprised in either the specific execution of how they go about resolving this or of them just resolving it in a way that I'm not expecting at all. So I'm TBD how I feel about all of this long term. What I do know is that I like their chemistry when they're on screen, and I'm happy to see more of it.
Fair enough. Maybe Kirk will help Spock deal with the whole love triangle thing, having come from the Vampire Diaries, where he was one point of a love triangle for many, many seasons. It would be an interesting callback to his past life.
Maybe that's the issue. I don't watch enough shows with love triangles drawn out over multiple seasons.
Maybe, yeah. I think you'd be more sensitive to it if you'd seen it in so many things. I didn't actually watch Vampire Diaries. I did watch a couple episodes, but I wasn't into it. But
fair.
The CW shows that I have watched tend to be the ones that are focused on either sci-fi concepts or superheroes. And they all have those tropes in them because it's what the CW built it on. It feels like every show that we have, doesn't matter what the skin is, we need these elements in there because our network is, or was, young, pretty people delaying being in relationships. That's what they do. And it seems like it's infested Star Trek to some degree. But we'll see how it plays out. I hope I'm wrong. I really hope I'm wrong. But for now, I'm okay with the Spock and Chapel connection and getting to see their chemistry move to the next level rather than just repeating the same beats, because canon says that they have to.
Hell yeah.
The episode wraps up quite nicely. They go to the bar. Kirk and Spock meet for the first time. They shake hands. They sit down and have a drink. I liked the earlier observation that Kirk made about Spock as well, noticing that he was being distracted by Chapel. He could have won in 3 moves, but now he won't.
Right. Got to mention Kirk and Spock and their love of chess.
Well, I think they only ever played it once in the original series.
Gosh, yeah, you're right. It's at least the once, but the once is very iconic.
It's the, has anyone told you play a very irritating game of chess, Mr. Spock? That line. That's the iconic one.
Yeah.
Any wrap-up thoughts on this particular episode? Did we cover everything you wanted to cover?
Yeah, I think we covered everything I wanted to cover. How about you?
I got through all my notes, so that's good. Do you want to plug yourself to the fine listeners?
Sure. Not really on the social media, but you can hear me elsewhere on the We Made This network. I've got The Way, a Star Wars discussion podcast that occasionally updates. I've got, well, you're already listening to one of the places to hear me here on We Are Starfleet, of course, but I've also got a podcast about Severance called Illumination Above All. That is in a bit of a hiatus between seasons, but we're hoping to have some content coming out in the next few months between now and the long-awaited season 2, and you can hear me on Movieversaries and elsewhere on the network too.
Cool. For me, I can be mostly found on Neil Before Blog, so that's neilbeforeblog.co.uk. It's an analytical review website where I review various things. I'm reviewing this. I did review Superman and Lois, but by the time this episode goes out, that'll be finished. Secret Invasion will still be on. I'm reviewing that. And films as well. And there's an attached podcast called Neil Before Pod where we talk about much the same things. There's a monthly news podcast. There's various things coming down the pipe as quickly as I can get them edited. But there's been more content than I have time to edit recently, so everything is slowing down somewhat. But you can find me there on Facebook and Twitter. It's under Neil Before Blog. Just type it and you'll find it. And personally, I can be found under Nemesis4909. I'm not on there very much, but since it's a Star Trek podcast on the We Made This network, I have to point out that it was originally a Resident Evil reference rather than a Star Trek reference. I was an edgy kid who thought going by Nemesis because I played Resident Evil 3 was cool, and then Star Trek Nemesis came out, which made me doubly uncool because nobody likes that film apparently. So there we go. That's that. We Are Starfleet is part of the We Made This podcast network, but it has its own socials. You can follow the show and join in the conversation on Twitter and Instagram at StarfleetPod, but it is part of the We Made This network of podcasts, which includes so many other shows, including Make It So, our sister Star Trek podcast, which is dealing with stuff that comes after / in the middle of the stuff we cover here. It's a bit all over the place. But you can find the network anyway under @WMT_network on Twitter or www.wemadethisnetwork.com. Star Trek Strange New Worlds isn't the only thing we're discussing, and you can stay tuned to hear a bit of other things found on the network in just a moment. But until next time, hit it.
Are you a fan of the Marvel Universe?
Can you tell your Kang from your Doctor Doom?
Well, if so, boy, do we have a podcast for you.
Podcast 616 is the We Made This Network's long-running Marvel podcast, and it's under new management.
We're your hosts, Ashley Thomas
and Hugh McStay.
And together, we are going to lead you every step of the way through the Marvel Cinematic Universe's upcoming multiverse saga.
Everything from She-Hulk to Avengers Secret Wars will be covered on the podcast in the kind of detail that would make a Wikipedia article blush.
We're going to have some detours into the wider Marvel world where we'll look at non-MCU projects dating all the way back to Marvel's origins in the groovy, funky 60s, and all the way up to the birth of the greatest franchise in cinema history.
And we'll be joined on our adventure by a roll call of guests so impressively knowledgeable that they'll make the Avengers themselves look clueless by comparison.
So if you like your opinions sharper than Wolverine's claws,
or takes hotter than the Human Torch's underpants,
then get Podcast 616 in your ears as a matter of urgency.
You'll love it 3000.
Podcast 616.
Disassemble.